Welcome to Safe to Love. We are on a mission to help the world believe and love again and give you the courage to find it. We are so excited to have our next guest. So I'm going to let Chad introduce them because they are dear friends of him.
Thank you, April.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to introduce Scott and LaRae. Scott's someone that I've known for a long time and recently got to know LaRae. Actually, both April and I have got to be guests on their podcast, and they hold a really beautiful space for storytelling. And, you know, one of the things we like to do here at Safe to Love is give people stories of hope and relationships where people have shown that it is possible to build a love that can stand the test of time. And you know, you guys have such a cool story. And you know, you guys weren't high school sweethearts. And so I feel like that's another really important thing, because a lot of people out there like have this sort of feeling, if we don't get it right the first time, then we're just fucked. Right. And that's not true. So, you know, I kind of wanted to invite both of you to briefly take a little bit of time and just sort of give us a background of your relationship before you met, you know, what your relationship history was like before you met, so that people can really understand that, you know, we all go through a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you for inviting us. We chatted about it as we drove over, and we're very excited to do this together and to share that.
Absolutely.
Kind of what our experience has been and what that feeling has been that has really continues to blossom between us.
Yeah. I mean, your podcast name, you know, it really draws me in, Safe to Love, because it's hard for us to find a place today to be in that place. There's not a lot of examples of that out there for us to witness and see. So we're honored to be here. Yeah. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
And the two of you are inspiring, you know, to also lean into love. So we love supporting you and the mission that you're on.
Thank you.
And I just came to listen to Chad's voice.
Thank you, Scott.
It's like butter. Love it. So, do you want to start, honey, or you want me to?
I'll let you start.
Okay. Well, I think the place to start is kind of where how I didn't really have any idea how to be in a relationship growing up. I didn't really learn that skill. Growing up through high school and all that, I did date, but you know, I just remember my dating years were like, which girl can I take and go watch Saturday Night Live and then make out with? That was kind of what my dating life was about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also had this other part of me, which was my conservative religious upbringing, where it's like, you know, you got to be really careful and you got to control your thoughts and you got to do this and you got to do that. And so my introduction to all of that was pretty dysfunctional. I didn't really have a balanced way of looking at what it was like to be in a relationship. I was exposed to pornography at a pretty young age, and that was part of my life. This is something I've openly talked about with, you know, in lots of different programs and men that I work with and everything. So this is no secret, and it's nothing that I hide from or shy away from, because I feel like it's something that that needs to have a light shined on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I held it in a really dark and shameful place for a lot of my life, and it was a significant influence on the destruction of my first marriage. So it's good to bring that out into the light and talk about it a little bit. So when I was going through my upbringing in life, I was raised Mormon, super conservative, served a mission in Brazil, went to college at Utah State, and that's where I met my first spouse, my former wife. I call her my former wife, and it was kind of a perfect storm when we came together. I had this very little experience. She was younger than me. She was when we met, she was 18. Oh, wow. So she was a freshman. I was a returned missionary, so I was 22, and it was a pretty whirlwind thing. I hadn't been in a situation like I was with her with anyone else before. It was kind of, you know, that first time of falling in love. I'd never really experienced that before. And so going through that experience was very new to me. It was the first time. And I hadn't had the experience of, you know, having my heart broken and going through, you know, being in a steady girlfriend relationship or any of that stuff. I didn't really know anything about that. And I was just flying by the seat of my pants in reality. So that marriage lasted for 17 years. We had 3 children. And that whole time I was hiding that other part of me. And she had things in her life that she had never brought to the front as well. And those things that she had in her life and the things that I had in my life, those traumas that we both had suffered were like fuel to the fire. And it resulted in our marriage dissolving and it not being, a very amicable parting of ways. A lot of trauma, a lot of very difficult things that went through that. So it was hard.
Yeah.
After we got divorced, it was 2000 was when we separated. It took us 2 years of battling to get divorced. And once we got divorced, I took 10 years to party. And, I went down the party road. I thought, there was so much pain and so much in my life that I wanted to escape from, that I was trying to find lots of different ways at that point.
Did you leave the church right after the marriage or during the marriage?
I got excommunicated from the church in 98. That was kind of the beginning of the end of the marriage.
Yeah.
So I worked on it for a couple of years to try and come back and wasn't successful at that. I didn't leave the church because I didn't believe in it or anything like that. I was asked to leave, which was fine. And I did work to come back. I did the 3 main things I was supposed to do. I prayed and I read my scriptures and I went to my meetings, and I found that all lacking somewhat. And it wasn't helping me to get where I needed to be. And I went down the road of partying for 10 years. And I did it until I didn't. And once I got to a certain point in 2008. So it had been, it was 8 years really. It wasn't 10, but I kind of call it 10 because it was 10 years later that I met Ray, and
Reconnected
because we did know each other. We grew up together in high school. We weren't boyfriend girlfriend, but
You are high school sweethearts.
We knew
Kinda.
each other. Scott was younger than me.
Yeah.
I love that.
But we did know each other.
I was 2 years behind her in school, and sophomores don't date seniors, so we didn't have that kind of a relationship. We had friends that we knew and we kind of intermingled with. But after I moved away from, I had in 2008, I had this experience that it was I call it an awakening, but it was really just seeing pretty clearly that if I continued down the road that I was on, that it wasn't going to end up very good. And so that shifted. And then I started working within. The first thing I did, I knew that, this is what's going to resolve it. I'm going to go back to church. That's going to resolve this. So I did. That's what I knew. So that's where I went. 2008, I went back to church, started doing my 3 main things again. And about 6 months into it, I was headed right back down the same road. And I said, well, that wasn't the answer. There's something else. I don't know what it is, but there's something else. And I had done, enough research of my own about the church that I didn't have any more an attachment to it. There were a lot of things about it that were inconsistent with what I had learned growing up. And so at that point, I left for good, without animosity, without, an agenda against it. I don't speak against it. I don't have a lot of baggage around it. But after I left, I was naturally led to the natural world. Mm-hmm. And I started to go in nature, and I started to go camping and fishing, and just going off by myself. At a certain point, I got a dog, and I'd take the dog with me. My youngest son, Grayson, was with me quite a bit at that time, and so he would join me on some of those trips. And I was just going within, connecting in nature, and that was a catalyst to shifting some things in my life that I needed to understand better. One of those things, and I've had kind of an epiphany about this recently, is my out of balance relationship with the feminine that had come through my upbringing as an adolescent, through my marriage and the 8-10 years of partying, was beginning to heal by being with Mother Nature, being with the feminine, being out there and just observing it and seeing it and feeling it, and not really having any words to explain what that was, but recognizing that beauty that I could see in the feminine of nature was a reflection to me. I had that kind of epiphany later, but it was healing and taking me to this place within myself that was much more calm.
Yeah. Softer.
Yeah. And then Ray walked into my life.
And then there she was.
There she was.
Yeah.
It was like magic.
It was like magic. Seriously, was like magic.
It was a magical time.
Yeah, it was.
So my journey to it was very different. You know, I didn't really date in high school or college. I was more of a bookworm. So my relationship with guys, I was study buddies. I had extremely close friendships, but we studied together. I helped guys get through school, and had really meaningful relationships with dear friends that I still have today. And so at the age of 25, I then set out for New York City to work, and didn't really know or imagine that I would live there for a long time. It just felt like an adventure that I was going on. And surprisingly, I liked it. It was different than anything I had known. And I remember the first year living in New York, everything fell apart for me. I remember writing home a letter to my parents saying, I think we're more similar than we are different. And suddenly faith and a lot of those judgments or differences that I thought existed just all fell away. And so I kind of, from that standpoint, became more liberated just in my worldview, but still didn't date too much. My career took off. I had come home for Christmas and had been in a really horrific car accident where my mother died, and I was left in the hospital in a long recovery. And so when I recovered and returned to New York, I was even more determined for my career to work. And so, again, I knew how to build relationships with men. It was I was in finance and economics. It was pretty much a men's world. There weren't very many women, and my career flourished. And men would take me under their wing and teach me, and I advanced really quickly, and the ability to care for myself and tend for myself was really attractive. And I would meet, men that worked for me that I would be interested in, but it was a very unusual dynamic. And so didn't really date men like that. And then suddenly I started to date men that were, they had all the career trappings and all the money trappings.
Helicopters.
And helicopters. And suddenly it was more of an attraction of what we could have together. I've told Scott, looking at it now, I think definitely my heart was engaged in it, but I look now that it always felt more like kind of power couple mergers, not an acquisition, but definitely a merger. And it just didn't have the tenderness to it that I had grown up believing was in a relationship. And so it would get so far and then I would end it. And I started to realize, well, I started to protect myself. And so the men that I dated weren't really emotionally available to me, and I wasn't really emotionally available to them. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fancy parties and adventures and travel, and but not too deep. And so as my career and life took off, and I eventually left corporate America and started my own business, and as that took off, suddenly a day came, and I'm in my late 40s, and I say to myself one day, I want to be married. I really want to be married. And so I told my sisters that I wanted to be married before my 50th birthday. And the one said, well, there's this new thing. You can date online. And I was like, what? And so we get together and sat around a computer and created a profile for me on Match.com. And I had my Match.com experience, which was very disappointing. I should have.
Does that even exist anymore? Do people do that? It's Tinder now.
I think different. Match.com still exists out there, but
it's like MySpace.
I laugh at the disappointing part because I think that we keep lowering the bar for it and still being disappointed. I don't know where the bottom of our expectations are for online dating, but.
Well, and I should have known. One of the, a couple of the first dates, people would say, wow, you look like your picture. That should have been a sign that there's something wrong with this.
The bar is high out there.
Wow. Real quick, did you grow up Mormon?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
BYU grad.
And I went to BYU. And so, but like I said, after living in New York the first year, all of that fell apart. Mm-hmm. It just I didn't feel like it and I were in attunement together anymore. And it was never like an angry departure. It just never felt right for me anymore. Mm-hmm. I would come home. I'm still very supportive of all my family. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't explore leaving the church from a doctrinal perspective. There's been things Scott and I laugh at. I remember the first time we talked about the Garden of Eden, and he's like, it's such a metaphor. And I'm like, wait, that's not real.
Adam and Eve is a metaphor? No.
And I'm like, why didn't I know that? So there's a big gap between the doctrinal part for me. But after Match.com, it was just very transactional and again, very, shallow. It wasn't a kind of experience to really find the right relationship. And so 50 came and went, and I just signed off on dating. I told my sisters, I said, I think I'm too old now, and I'm just going to just really relish in being an aunt. Mm. And so it was January of 2010 that I kind of stopped dating altogether. And then it was in the end of June, that Scott reached out. He'd actually seen a picture of me with my sisters and my family, and he reached out and he says, are you here in Salt Lake? And I said, I am. He said, we should have lunch.
Facebook.
And that's where it started.
Facebook, yeah.
Facebook, yeah. Facebook dating. Facebook dating is a real thing.
So we reconnected via Facebook.
Yep.
I think some people are even trying to find love on LinkedIn. There's definitely a sense of desperation out there.
Well, and it wasn't like I wasn't looking for a date on Facebook, but I was friends with her sister. We weren't friends yet on Facebook, but we hadn't stayed in touch. Her sister's my age, and I saw a post that she had made, and I saw Ray in it, and I was like, oh, she's in Salt Lake. And we had interactions before, so I just sent her a message and say, hey, what are you doing? We should go out to lunch sometime or something.
Well, before you guys get into the fun part of the story, right? Where you guys meet, I really love that, when I work with people and we're at this, exciting part of life, I don't know what euphemism we want to call our 40s. And there's kind of that sense of like, I'm too old. And I tell people like, there's ups and downs to it. We accumulate more baggage, right? Like we got by the time, I'm 40 when we met, I had a whole train behind me. I had to hire some porters for all the baggage that we bring, but we also bring so much more maturity.
Yeah.
And so much more knowledge of ourselves. And I love that both of you really had this thing in common. Like we went out and we sowed our wild oats, and it wasn't even bad. There wasn't this sort of negative relationship with it, but that season came and went. And then when that season ended, there's this, sometimes people have this hard time when a season ends, when there's something that brings fulfillment and enjoyment and satisfaction to our life. And when it starts to not, we fight it. We're like, no, I have found the thing.
Right.
It's Scott's favorite thing is don't make the thing the thing.
Don't make the thing the thing.
And so we also get to come into, we get to also look at we get to be honest about the challenges, right, that come with dating later in life and the trauma that we bring and everything. But we also get to recognize the the beautiful advantages it brings. Like we get to come in with these perspectives, this sort of like we kind of start to know ourselves. And so it makes it easier to meet people that we might actually be compatible with.
Right.
Because we actually know ourselves. And I think about some people that do meet as high school sweethearts and have beautiful relationships. And I'm like, I'd love to know if that was just like winning the lottery, because, you know, at 20 years old, I didn't know who I was. And like if I'd have picked a partner I thought was compatible with me, my understanding of who I was so off, right? And so as you guys
thus my experience,
you guys both,
Right.
exactly. We bring people into our life that are who we think we are, and so you guys both got to experience coming together where you would reach this place of like, you know, I'm no longer playing that game.
Yeah, definitely. I was, you know, it only took me until 50 to start to recognize who I was. And it came through, you know, the menagerie of all of those things, of the easy things, the hard things, the partying, the disconnection, the divorce, the not seeing my children for a long period of time. All of those things played into it. And then it got to that point where once I started kind of down that road of looking within myself, that I knew that I needed to work on myself before I went out and found a partner. I just innately knew that. And that's one of the words of advice that I would give to anyone. If you're coming out of a relationship or you're going through some kind of difficult time in your life, take time to process through whatever you need to process through. For me, I did it. It was about almost 2 years. It was about a year and a half to 2 years that I did that. And it wasn't like I went out and did plant medicine and was following along all the stuff that there is out there, cold plunging and, you know, all the things. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just looking within myself. I knew that there was something I was seeking, but didn't really know what it was. And it was, you know, after we came together and we then joined hands and started doing this journey together, and don't think that it was always easy. Let's not, you know, paint this rosy picture that it was just, you know, Shangri-La all the time, because I still had my challenges that I was still working on. Even though I'd been doing all this work, I still had all the stuff, all the trauma, all of the dysfunctional ways of being in a relationship. I was a runner, you know. We'd get in an argument, and it'd get to, I did not like to be in confrontational. I still don't. That's, you know, uncomfortable for me to be in a confrontational space.
And I was really good at it.
She was very good at it.
Because of my corporate upbringing.
Because you had to be in New York.
I had to manage having difficult conversations and really being okay to have them. And so suddenly here I am really comfortable wanting to talk about something hard. And he's like, I'm going to see you later.
Yeah, I'm out of here. I'm going to Rexburg to see my brother.
And I'm like,
I'll be back in a couple of days. And, you know, that happened multiple times until one time I was backing out of the driveway, and she came out and walked up to the truck, and I rolled the window down, and she said, "You can't keep doing this. You know, you can't keep just leaving. Nothing's ever going to get resolved if you keep leaving." And I think that's the first time that I didn't run. So
yeah, and he came back in the house and he's like, "Okay, if I stay, then here's something I need from you. You can't follow me around wanting to talk about it until I'm ready to talk about it." Because talking about it was always on my terms. Like, I'm ready now and I'm really capable of doing this. So let's just have this conversation. And so I'm like, okay, I can do that as long as you'll get ready. It can't just be avoided. And so we both kind of learned how to give and take in that moment to navigate through things that would just come up that we wouldn't understand. And a lot of them were the juggles and disappointments and sort of expectations that I had around his children and how they would either be part of our lives during holidays or how we would engage with them and interact. And he was constantly reminding me that it wasn't up to the two of us. There was also their mother. And so that coordination was not something that was easy to navigate at all.
Because you had not had, like, didn't have children or have this
No.
other
No.
person.
So
you had kind of you lived a life where you kind of got to do what you
Call the
wanted to
shots.
do when
Yeah.
you wanted to do it.
Yes.
You know,
She had a preconceived idea of how holidays were going to show up, and Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of the events, and how that was going to show up and how she wanted it to show up.
it seemed very logical to
and
me.
it never did show up.
It was like we can take turns, or if she wants this, we can have that. It just felt very logical, and I kept saying to Scott, I don't see why it's so hard. This is not rocket science. This is just sharing.
Yeah.
And but it was super hard. And it was super hard for me because the lack of not being able to approach it logically was really hard for me. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
How and I'm not sure how long this period of time was, especially, I know I'm a lot like you. Like I always say to people, like, don't ever tell me we need to talk unless the next words are right now. And the challenge of just having a partner, like literally like go to another state. How did you find the patience to kind of get through some of those? I think it's something I find people really struggle with a lot, is the patience to go through some of those early parts of getting to know someone.
Well, it was hard because he would remove himself. So there was no conversation. So I had this roller coaster experience of like being angry at first when he left, and then suddenly feeling very guilty that I had caused him to leave, and then suddenly feeling very sad that like the relationship is ending. So I would travel this journey with him departing, and then he'd come back, and I would just be happy that he was back. And I figured maybe it won't happen again. And he would go off and just let go of it.
Yeah, I never felt like
He never felt guilty. He never felt sad.
and I never felt like the relationship was going to end.
Right.
I didn't think that it was like I left and came back, and I needed the time to
Be in nature.
defrag my hard drive and go into nature and be with my brother. My brother and I we got divorced around the same time, and so the two of us we've been each other's therapists for a long time. At a certain point in time, we stopped doing that because I was able to kind of do some of this stuff on my own now.
Yeah.
But not that we don't still support each other, but he never got married again. That's his choice. He didn't want to, because marriage takes a lot of work, and it's easier not to be married than it is to be married or to be in a relationship.
Well, and that was the question for me, was maybe this isn't for me. I would question that. And I would think maybe that's why I just haven't chose this up to this point. And
I didn't make it easy, I promise. I didn't
and
make it
so
easy.
I would think I've got to figure this out. I've got to try harder, because I thought, maybe I'm too independent. And so when it happened, I think it only happened twice before I said this has to end. And that was a big milestone, because then we did learn to navigate anything that came up that was challenging. Like I said, it was mostly issues around navigating, because it was always around the holidays too. And then I remember one day also sitting on the bed and saying to him, I think we gave it a good try. There's nothing to be sad about. I think, we've loved the time we've spent together. This has been real. We've learned a lot. And, there's no shame in saying it's just not going to work.
I was like, what the hell are you talking
And Scott
about?
looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, how do you get there? He said, you don't get it. I'm not in this relationship for it not to work. And I'm looking at him like, and I'm like 2 steps away from leaving, kind of thing. And so we kind of looked at each other.
This was when we were still in the little house. That's what I'm remembering. Before we moved into the new house, I'm pretty sure that it was
I don't
super
remember.
early on.
But I remember thinking like, wow, that's interesting that our perspective is so different. And so,
And I think that's, I mean, honestly, I just want to pause there for everybody listening. Like, there are a lot of men that I encounter all the time that are completely unaware of how close to the edge they are. Like just blissfully unaware, like, oh yeah, we're having some problems, but everything's good. Where their partner's already planning their exit.
Yes.
And and again, I'm glad that you were able to kind of recognize like a lot of times that may come from a place of genuine dysfunction or just from our own kind of convincing ourselves that we're not ready for this. But I think it's really important for men, especially, to check in with themselves about taking their partner for granted. I think that's like one of the ultimate sins that we can commit.
We do it readily, and
we do
because we're kind of selfish. We're kind of in our own little world. No, selfish isn't the right word. We're just self-absorbed in our own little world a lot of the time. We're not complicated. We're in our own thoughts.
I might disagree with that one.
I love that you say you're not complicated. You're very complicated.
That's a trope that we challenge a lot here on the show.
Actually, you guys are very complicated.
But we are kind of conditioned.
She's the logical one. Let's be clear.
Yeah. We are kind of conditioned to that as men, especially in and I grew up here surrounded by religious upbringing without it. But there's so much programming of men to, if you're doing. It's like you said, the three things. If I'm praying and I'm reading my scriptures and whatever the third thing was, then everything's fine, right? And as men are kind of taught, like, look, I'm going to work. I'm paying the bills. Every now and then we just, it's not even necessarily like something to have guilt or shame about, but we're just sort of taught, like, if you're doing the minimum and they're not screaming and yelling, then everything's fine. Right. And a lot of times that when they're not screaming and yelling is actually when it's time to maybe say, hey, I need to take a look at this. Because one thing that I've learned too is women will put up with a lot, but then when they're done, they're done.
They'll start checking out.
They're done. Sure. And it's a tragic thing that I've seen too many times that a man does not become aware of the situation he's in until his female partner. And this happens sometimes the other way too. This is a generality, but I've seen it so much often where, like, by the time the man's like, oh shit, okay, I'm ready to really take this seriously, she's past the point of no return.
Too late. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we had those struggles first on, because, and I also then really made a very strong decision about this doesn't have to show up a certain way. Like, I kept waiting for him to say, let's get married. There was like something in me, a timeline that was unconscious or, ticking unconsciously that I was aware of. And I remember one day thinking, I'm actually okay with us not getting married, because if it doesn't work out, it's a much easier to leave.
Easy exit.
And so everything just settled down for the first 2 years then. And then he surprised me when he asked me to marry him. But it was at that point there were no external pressures for that to happen.
I mean, it was definitely something we talked about, and it was definitely something on my radar. I wanted to be married again. I grew up in a traditional family. I don't think it was necessary for us to get married and have a piece of paper and all that. I'm way less traditional than I used to be. However, because we have families and we have a tradition and we wanted to honor that. And we wanted to be married. We wanted to be together.
And I wanted a wedding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she wanted a wedding.
Yeah, I wanted a wedding.
And it was a beautiful wedding.
And it was.
It was really nice.
I wanted the experience of that wedding.
Yeah.
Of our family together and everything. But as I think about through those first years, and I think about where we are now, some of the biggest things that have solidified the growth is one that we took a step early on to say we're committed to each other's growing. We didn't fall into some of these traditional roles that Scott had to be, I wasn't working when we came together. I was taking a break.
You were, but you weren't making any money.
Right. And so, yeah, exactly. But we flipped that around, because early on, Scott was doing real estate, mortgage lending,
mortgage broker.
Came home, and it was painful because he was always so upset. And I said, if we're going to build a life, this can't be how you are.
Mm.
Like we have to eliminate that.
It was super stressful.
And he was like, that can't happen. Here's the reality. I have child support and I have this. And I'm like, I can work. Like this doesn't have to show up traditionally. And so I think that's a big step that we took together. It was easier for me than it was for him. It was super hard for him to say, okay, I will try not working.
it's hard.
Because of all the pressure and conditioning.
I'd never even considered that as an option ever.
But I look back on that, and that was really then where he gave himself permission to step even deeper into nature. He stepped into photography. He stepped into knowing himself. Our conversations and our adventures were rich because it never had the pressure of that external factor of, work for him. And work for me was easier. And so that just became a simple choice.
Yeah.
And then from that, it led to him meeting people and them introducing us to the idea of coming to Peru. I don't think that would have ever hit either one of our radar.
No, I don't either.
And that was a significant growth spiritually for both of us to go to Peru.
It wasn't on my radar. I know that.
And to engage in plant medicine. And then from that, life just really changed. And suddenly the illusion part of it and the game part of it changed. And we started to say what really matters to us. And that's when the commitment to spiritual growth together, really understanding who we were, what talents were unexplored, and how to give space for that. All of that happened. And I think, it was kind of a choppy road to get there, but that's where I think, thank goodness it happened later in life when less external pressures were upon us so that we could say yes to that. We didn't know how it was going to look or show up. We just knew that we had to both say yes.
Yeah.
And it was hard. I mean, that Scott was like, well, let's think about me quitting. And I'm like, no, we have to decide right now. You have to name a month that you're going to quit. And it was like in the summer. And he said, let's see how December looks. I said, okay, you're
end of the
quit
year
by December.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
It was hilarious. I mean, because I started transitioning out the company I was working for. It was interesting. I went and had an interview with one of the head guys, and the business was transitioning so much, and I was so unhappy. I had a business partner that I was working with, and we were great friends, and we still are to this day great friends. But the business became so challenging that deals would fall apart. My deals would fall apart. His deals would fall apart. And we were reliant on each other's deals closing to have the amount of income we needed. I remember a deal that both of our commissions was going to be like 10 grand, and it fell apart. And it was just like, we were both counting on that. And that was kind of the impetus to this whole stressed out situation. And I went in and met with my boss, and he looks at me, and it was after I had already made the decision that I was going to leave, but I hadn't told him yet. And he's like, are you really happy doing this? Or, I mean, you don't feel like you're passionate about this anymore? Because I was really passionate about it for a long time. And I was just like, how do you know that? He goes, well, I can just tell. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm really not passionate about it. I'm really not. And we worked inside of a real estate office, a Coldwell Banker real estate office in Bountiful. And we needed to be there to service people. And he was like, maybe you ought to think about doing something else or whatever. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I kind of already am. So I said, I'll just let you know that I'm transitioning out now. I don't know what that time frame is going to look like for sure. And then I went home and told Ray, and reached out to another guy who had another mortgage company. And he had been begging me to come and work for them for years. I said, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my company. Could I come over there? I still wanted to have benefits and stuff. Can I come over there? And he said, yes, come and welcome me with open arms. So I went over there and worked for 2 or 3 months, left the other company, and then transitioned out. I was kind of trying to make it work, but it was around peg through a square hole. And I was so unmotivated that eventually I just said, yeah, I'm done.
I was the only voice of support.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everyone was like, you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. 'Cause I was a top producer in the company, and I went from top producer in the company to like a year later leaving. And, you know, we would get like free trips, like cruises and stuff like that. And I was going on the cruises and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, I've just lost the fire.
Yeah.
Well, I really love this part of the story because it is a simple decision, right? And the only Scott I've got to know, I can't even imagine being a mortgage broker. Like, I don't think I could
wrap your head around
I don't think I could get AI to put a tie on you. But there's so much for a man that we're taught to tie our identity, you know, and having gone through this process myself this year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of having corporate America kind of spit me out and not take me back. And
blessing.
Like,
it's a blessing.
It's a blessing, but it's also at the time, like, it's a crisis of identity that we that we have to walk through.
Yeah, I can relate.
So the maturity to both of you to say, you know, this makes sense actually, even though it's a counter to what we're taught. And you like really is like Scott. It really is like the chillest. Like, he's just a vibe.
Yeah. He is.
Well, I've done a lot of introspective work, you know, and I haven't always been that way. I've always been kind of chill, but also on a level of stress where, you know, I was stressed out a lot. But again, going back to nature brought that calmness, sitting by the side of a stream and just listening to the water and balancing the sound in my ears and just going to that place of just, holy shit, it's so cool to be alive in a body and having this experience. And I kept having that over and over. And these were experiences that I had never leaned into when I was in religion, because religion, it talks about everything is outside of you. Well, yeah, the river, the stream is outside of me. However, the experience of the river and the stream is not outside of me. The experience is happening within. And I started to live my life in that place within. And when that shifted, when we came together, we started reading books together. We were on this spiritual journey hand in hand. So, you know, we would find a book that we thought would be a good one to read. Some of the earlier ones that we read, like The Untethered Soul and Gary's
Seed of the Soul.
Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav. And some of these books, they were opening us up to a way of being spiritual without having to be in religion, and starting to see that. I remember when I read Eckhart Tolle's The New Earth and Power of Now, I was like, what in the hell? I've never heard anything like this before. And
those are all my first books too.
Yeah.
Spirituality.
Isn't it interesting how there's a lot of parallels for people. So, you know, if you're on the journey, just realize that those are steps on the journey. They're still not the answers, but they're definitely steps to help you to shed and let go of the things that you can let go of. And then, you know, we were doing it together. So it's like we could discuss it. We could banter back and forth. We could talk about it. I would read out loud and then she would read out loud, or we'd download the Audible version and just read along in Kindle or whatever. Just, we were seekers, and we seeked for a while.
Well, and it was definitely something that Scott, I look at it now and it all makes sense to me that it had to happen the way that it did, because Scott had such a curiosity about it because of his connection to nature. And he saw patterns and things that came much quicker for him. And, you know, we would be reading something and he would take off with it and run, and I'd be like, I'm not even understanding what you're saying right now. You know, you need to come back where I'm at and like,
I was just processing out
leave me
loud.
some breadcrumbs so that I can get to where you're at.
Yeah.
And it was just really important because he did move faster. And then he started to give me this beautiful mirror that I could lean into and understand better and allow it to be my own timing. But it had to happen that way.
Yeah.
Because his curiosity just fueled more and more curiosity. And I remember we met a woman in the UK, and he said, I think we should have her coach us. And I'm like, why do we need a coach? Like, I don't understand this.
We met her the week after we did ayahuasca in Peru. We went to England right after that, and she was at an event, and we met her. And yeah, this was the
and
experience.
it was a significant investment. She lives in London. We'd have to fly to London to have meetings. We met her in Switzerland. And somehow he's just like, I think it's just all part of what our experience should be. And so we made that commitment. And I look at that even, and that's such a crossroad that introduced us to these divine principles that started to just shape our life very differently. Mm-hmm. And again, Scott saw them and found them so much quicker than I did. And I would say he would talk to me about being present. And I'm like, sweetheart, I am present. I am right here. Like, I'm physically right here. And he's like, but you're not present. And I had the hardest time. I laugh at that now, but I would think, how can you say that? How can you say that I'm not present? But my mind was a million miles away. I was
you were
busy.
still working.
I was still working.
Yeah.
I was carrying this forward and that forward and getting up in the night doing spreadsheets. And, it was, my world was chaotic.
You cannot be present
still.
Doing spreadsheets.
And you can't be present.
Spreadsheets are a trigger warning.
And it was really his patience and his love that brought me along. And, the continual kind of commitment to reading together. He was never an early riser. I always was. Suddenly now he's more of an early riser than I am, except when I can't sleep and I'm up early. But we get up and we read together every day. We have these rituals that are so meaningful for us that we share together. And
Coffee's one of them, just so you know.
yes. And also just never leaving each other with something unsaid. That's where, even if it isn't ready to be spoken out loud and he's ready to go outside and I feel like there's still something that should be said, we come together and we hug each other before he goes outside, because energetically we want to feel that connection, even though we know that there's something that needs to be processed and talked about later, but that we're still okay. Because
that's the safety that you both
that was
created for yourself.
Yeah.
And that was the safety that I was one who would sit and worry and say, like, what does this mean? Where's this going? So that connection just always said, yes, I'm here. We're okay. We'll think about whatever's in our minds that needs to be processed, and then we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, our morning, she's going to be doing work. She'll be doing calls and all of the things that she's working on during the day. I can't say job. I can't say my work. I can't say what I'm going to be doing during the day is I'm going outside. I'm going out to nature. I'm going to be out there. I'm just going in my backyard. And I've got a garden there. My teepee's in the backyard. I go out there and I do my thing. But before we do that, like she said, we connect. And so I was spending a lot of time out there having these experiences, finding presence, having actual tangible experiences that were significantly changing how I was perceiving myself, especially. But, I wanted her to have that. I wanted her to see that, but her thing isn't to come and sit in the garden. That's not Ray's thing. And then one day, one of these friends of hers, Vanessa, said, have you ever tried a silent retreat? Vipassana. And she's like, no, tell me more. And so she told her more and told her about it. And just so happens that they have one in Lava Hot Springs, and she was feeling really drawn to doing it. And she's telling me what they're going to do. And it was 10 days of silence. And I was like, really?
Are you sure
you're going to go do 10-day silent retreat? And
every time I tell anyone I want to do that, that's their response. They're like, really?
Right.
I don't think you'd make it 10 hours.
I know, it's surprising.
So I was 100% in support, 100% in support of that, because I felt like, this might be a way for her. And it absolutely was. I mean, it was life-changing for her. She got to have the experience of what I'm talking about. So now when I talk about it, she has something to refer to. She has something to have the realization of what I'm talking about. Because you can't just, like she said, you can't just say, you're not being present. Well, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm here, just like she said. But it's, you know, it's kind of a buzzword now, finding your way to be present. But it's the reality. It's the secret sauce. It's the holy grail. It's the thing.
Right.
If you want to make a thing the thing, finding presence that can be a thing.
Finding presence is the exception.
It's the exception.
Dogmatically about presence.
Well, it's because each person finds it in their own way.
Well, and that's really what was important, was that we needed to create a common language between us, but also allow that our experiences didn't have to be the same.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of experiences that we do together. We have a lot of time together, but there's also things that he loves to do. I love to join him sometimes. Playing drums for 4 hours is harder for me. I'd say, I'll drive and myself and stay for 2 and leave. But he, you know, there's that balance where the common language gets developed, but the experiences can still be unique, and then they merge together and create this really beautiful harmony.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important.
She's so supportive of my going out with the crew of people that go play music, because she knows when I come back. She's experienced it before at the house. Like, I remember one day we were downstairs and it was just men, I think. And it was a bunch of men. And part of what we did that night, we did the drumming and the music playing and all that, but part of what we did that night was toning. I think Carl Rabke had come and he led us in some toning and some circle songs. And she was like, when I came upstairs afterwards, she's like, "What was that?" Yeah, and I said, "Well, you know, we were just toning." And she said it brought tears to her eyes to hear that and feel that and experience that. And that's the same way I feel every time we do it.
You know, and then we'll each get things that that will feel prompted for the other one, that the other one really should do. Like I told Scott, I really felt you should do the men's council.
Oh yeah.
And so Scott then sat with it and he was like, And I'm like, I just feel so strongly that you should do that. You should go away.
I've learned to listen to that.
And there was something with the calendar that he was worried about, and will it fit? And I said, well, just make it fit. I think it's really important that you're there. And
you're talking about the online virtual men's council
and the first physical one.
And the first physical one, yeah.
And it's another part of his happy places.
For sure. You can relate to that,
I can
Chad.
relate to that. And honestly, that could make a whole episode talk about that, but just take a quick shout out to the Energy Stack group and that men's council, and how much, and to LaRae for recognizing like how much men need other men. We need other men in a healthy way, and how much that allows us to show up better in our relationships. You know, well,
it's what allowed you and I to get closer. I got to hear your story. Then you came on our podcast and shared your story even deeper there, and it blew my mind. I get emotional just thinking about it, so I'm not going to think about it. But your story is so amazing and powerful, and it definitely affected me once I got to know you.
Well, and I think it's just to get personal, like we met in a drum circle community and actually kind of interacted energetically. You know, there's this beautiful energetic.
Yes. We didn't say no words. It was just
drumming
music.
Together brings this connection to people that's so beautiful. But it wasn't really until this year, you know, when we both sat in that first virtual container, that we actually got to know each other at a deeper level. And they're all important.
Yeah.
You know, they're all important. And I've got to experience both of you energetically the first time when I got to come on your show, and just there's this embodied sense that you were the first people that came up when April and I were talking about, you know, wanting to bring couples on to share their story, but just this embodied sense, like these are two people that are in love, getting to
respect each
hear
other.
you guys share about the couple of things that keep coming up for me is this maturity and this curiosity and this acceptance of the transitions, you know, and this acceptance when things flip the script that we're taught.
Yeah.
You know, you have this beautiful relationship that a lot of people might say, oh, you know, you're supporting this lazy bum.
Yeah,
And yet
totally.
you're two of the happiest people I
People
know.
actually said that to us.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
I
I'm
was like,
sure.
Why aren't you
That's
working?
none of you. Yeah.
And then she's like, have you heard him play the flute?
Yeah. Or I've sat in the Cathedral of the Madeleine and he stood there and played and I just wept. I'm like, this is so where he belongs. Like, this is what he's meant to experience in this lifetime. And I just feel so honored to be a witness to that, however that shows up. And then he gets to help me find that part of myself that is meant to be experienced here in this lifetime.
What a beautiful just example of reciprocity. You know, you both give and accept, and so it's cool to hear the story that explains the energy. You know, we sense the energy, we know it's true, and then to hear, oh, this is how they built it, and there's a lot of parallels to our relationship. You know, when we met, I had just lost my job,
And I'm a runner.
and she's
You're
a runner
too?
I'm a runner.
Yeah.
And he's the like,
High five.
no, we got to talk about this like
Yeah.
right now. And I'm like, and
we've
literally
had-
I said the same thing. Like, I need a moment to not react.
Yep.
So we cannot talk about it right now. But I do say we will talk about it.
Which is hard for me sometimes to bite my tongue. I literally just be like, okay, I'll shut up for a minute. I just would, before we close, I kind of want to just ask you guys what your life is like now. You know, the story is so beautiful and the energy is so
thank you
beautiful,
for
but I
sharing
also
that.
think sometimes people lose faith that, like, because relationships are work. They're compromised. They're a lot.
Always.
But the why we do it, the rewards of all of this work and this you know, coming together and curiosity and everything you've shown each other. Like, what is your life like today?
Do you want to go or do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, I'll
You
share.
go.
You know, it's still very much that same way. We're still very supportive. Scott's very engaged in the men's council and the men's gatherings, the teepee gatherings on Tuesday that he hosts at the house. We have our podcast together, the Observatory, that we love to do and create those conversations and stories. And you know, it's that continual invitation for us to know each other better so that we can support one another and further the relationship. I have gone so much further in this marriage about knowing myself than I think ever. And then we look at our own siblings and we're like, how do they not ask those questions? Like, where do you get where you just are comfortable? And it's like, okay, here's an easy place to sit and let's just sit here. We're very restless.
Yeah.
We're like, we want to go a little deeper. So we travel and, you know, I'm in the middle of doing Gabor Mate's Compassionate Inquiry. And that has opened up so many doors for both of us. And like I said, we just continue to explore everything that life has to give. And we want to make sure that we take every advantage of it.
I'm going to speak, because we talked about this a little bit before the podcast. I'm going to speak a little bit to the people that are our age. So we're at retirement age now. There's a lot of relationships out there like ours that have been together since, 40 years, 50 years, and they're not happy. They've acquiesced themselves to settling, and that's just not the way to live. And I'm not advocating that everybody go and dissolve your relationships. What I am advocating is that you rebirth that relationship.
And lean into it.
Lean into it. Take time to read together. Find things that you are compatible with each of you, something that you want to explore together. That doesn't mean that you have to spend all of your time together. She's not out in the teepee with me, hanging out, burning fires and smudging and, all the crazy things that I do out there. But I'm also not inside doing calls with her and the work that she does. We each have our own independent ways of doing things, but when we come together with purpose, with a camaraderie and a friendship, and we really try to do things that feed our souls. Like she said, traveling. We've got some good friends that live in Mexico, and they invite us to come and stay with them all the time. Scott and Ed Webb, they've been on our podcast, and we love them. And so it's a good opportunity for us to be able to go there and be with them and spend time with them. And then we go do our own thing too. Like Ray said, we're thinking about we're definitely going on a trip at the end of the year with Hugh and Amy, two of our really good friends. Where we don't know for sure, but she just brought up a really good idea to go down to Big Sur. And I think that really is resonating with me as you say that. So, but, relationships are up and down. They're a roller coaster. There's things that we have to navigate. And me being a runner, April, you being a runner, though it's hard for us to sit still in those things sometimes. But when you've got a good partner that is willing to allow you to do that, and we can see that in you guys, that is willing to walk that path with you and willing to bring you along and give you some space when you need it. There's ways to navigate things. This world that we're living in is so interesting right now, and there's so much division and all this stuff going on, but those things are just a distraction. Let go of all that stuff. Stop watching the news. Stop sitting on your phone. I'm not saying I don't do any of this, because I do.
And make time for intimacy.
Make time for intimacy, yes, absolutely. We're in our 60s, but we still have an intimate physical relationship, absolutely. And I know, just speaking in generalized terms, that tends to fade a lot of times when people get older. And it's probably faded from what it was when we first got married. But I think that's also normal. But we still make it a priority that we take the time to be in full presence with each other physically, because my experience with intimacy, with sexuality in my early life was one of transactional sex, not intimate sex. So the transactional sex I had, that's when I'd had so much transactional sex by the end of my 10-year partying that I was like, well, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good. This isn't helping me in any way. I want something else. And that's when I started working within. That's when Ray walked into my life, and we started that journey together. And it's ongoing.
But it's a flame that has to be kept alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't let it become a dying ember. That's a very important part of physically feeling each other's energy and connection.
Yeah.
Can really sustain a marriage for a long time.
And if you need to do something to rekindle that, if you need to educate yourselves a little bit more, become comfortable with your own bodies, your own intimacy, whether that's from a man's standpoint or a woman's standpoint. I was talking to some men the other day about this. It's like, we've had lots of conversations about how women are afraid to look at their bodies and all this stuff. Well, how about men treating their penises as an outside entity? This isn't me. It's in control. Well, no, it's not in control. This is part of you. It's a positive part of you. It's not a negative part of you. And a lot of times in the learning that men grow up with, it can be put in that place where, it's in charge. It's a negative thing where
it's got a mind of its own.
It's got a mind of its own.
I have no control over it.
I have no control. It's not my responsibility. Well, that's not true.
Well, or on the other side, like a lot of men, this is something that I didn't learn until I was challenged. Like, we don't think about it until we want it to do something. We don't sit and love our genitals.
Right.
We kind of forget they exist.
Yeah.
Until we then demand that they perform some act for us.
Yeah.
And that is definitely something that there's a lot of lessons about that men could learn from women.
I agree.
So
Just real quick, I wanted to give you guys you guys are freaking cute, by the way. Just have to say that. I just wanted to give you guys just a brief moment because you mentioned your podcast, The Observatory, and just want to give you a chance to kind of share with that. I think a lot of people would be interested after hearing this episode.
Too.
Yes. You want to do that, honey? Go ahead.
The Observatory, we decided to start that. It's really you observing you being you. We love to have guests come on that talk about their journey into themselves.
It's our third year.
We're in our third year. It's on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, and we love it. We love having those conversations. So come join us there.
And you can go deeper into the conversations that we've already had here, because there's some of them where we've done just the two of us talking about specific things in our relationship. For example, the Santa hat incident is one that you got to go listen to.
Well, that is one hell of marketing there, because now I want to go look up the Santa hat incident.
And then we are doing retreats. You Are the Medicine retreat. We do that with Hugh Vale and Amy Wood. And those retreats are, again, very experiential. And we'll be doing one in the spring. So it's best to follow us on Instagram. That's where you'll find out what we're up to. And
we'll put all those links in.
We'll make sure to link that to everybody when we share this.
But those are the biggest things that we're doing right now.
And music.
Scott's always doing music.
Scott is always doing music.
Several different kinds of albums and offerings out there. Some of it's drumming, some of it's flutes. Some of it's collaborations. Adam Heaps and I have done a collaboration. We're working on another collaboration that I'm doing for those of you who know what Hape is. I'm doing a Hape album where each song is curated through Hape and it's used for Hape meditation.
And all of that is on Apple Music, right?
All of it's on Apple or Spotify, wherever, YouTube, you can find it under my name, Scott David Wright, and then also under the Observatory Chakra Series, and Bring the Fire is the drum circle part.
I love it.
I love telling people that I'm married to a musician.
Yeah, I know.
It's much better than a mortgage.
For sure. So much more interesting.
And a hippie. I tell people all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, people will say, like, have you met LaRae's husband? He's like a hippie. I'm like, oh, yes, he is.
Because she's got a lot of corporate meetings and different things like that. So, yeah.
I put my shoes on today, guys. Okay, give me a break.
You guys, I think our listeners will definitely be excited to check it out, because there's so many different things you guys talked about that are so beautiful, and would love to dive in deeper. But we are out of time. So really quick, I just want to ask both of you this question. And just, what's one piece of advice that you'd leave our audience with to give them hope and love?
Mine would be to stay curious, to let go of all the preconceived notions that you have and just stay curious with life. Allow it to surprise you.
Never give up and just keep walking. That has served me very well, to just keep walking, because there's always those days when you don't feel like you can see where the path is going. Just one foot in front of the other. Just keep going. The universe has your back.
Thank you.
It might suck today, but tomorrow it may not. So.
Yeah.
Run or walk, don't run.
That's what I was just going to tease them about.
Don't run. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Well, Scott and LaRae Wright, thank you so much for coming on our show. This was absolutely beautiful.
It was amazing. Thank you.
And I'm sure that there'll probably some point down the road we may have you guys on again and talk about something else, because you're just delightful people.
Love it.
And a great example of real love.
And we're having you guys on together, because we've had you on separately. So we want to have you guys on our podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I know us together is our favorite thing to talk about. So.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much. And that is our show today. And remember, everyone, be brave. Love is worth it.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks.